Birria Tacos. They took the internet by storm a few years ago, and for good reason. They're arguably one of the best tacos out there. Now, I did a couple of shorts on them a couple of years ago, but I thought it's time to go deep on them in a long format video. And we're also gonna make our own tortillas, because as you saw in my video recently, my shorts video, homemade corn tortillas are way better. So let's get stuck in. The meat. Traditionally, pretty sure these are made with goat, but we're gonna use beef today. These are short ribs. These are ebony Angus short ribs. They make a great birria, but they're an expensive way to do it. I'm really privileged to get access to this stuff. Other options are oyster blade, top round, anything with some good connective tissue. You wouldn't use a prime cut, but you want something like short ribs that have this like intermuscular fat and connective tissue. Look at that. So this is an Angus piece of meat. It's not Wagyu, and look at that intramuscular fat. That is stunning. So I'm going to take the meat off these bones. Now, some people might say that's sacrilege, but I don't think I'm going to fit it all on the bones in the pot. I will, however, keep some of the bones and put it in the pot when we're cooking, just to get that flavor. Take the short rib off, run your blade down as close to the bone as you can, as carefully as you can. And if you don't use all these bones when you're braising your birria, then keep them and use it for beef stock, because they make great beef stock. But you want good sized chunks like that. So now our beef is trimmed, and from this point on, the process is the same, doesn't matter kind of what cut of meat you're using. Just get them onto the tray, the pieces that you're gonna use. Real simple, salt, all sides. Then we'll just season these pieces here too. A couple of bones for the pot, if they fit, should fit. We'll put that to the side and we'll start dealing with our chilies. All right, let's talk chilies and aromats. So we're gonna use 3 types of dried chilies here. We have the Guajillo chili, which gives the color and the spiciness. We have the Ancho, which is a really delicious kind of sweet toffee-like chili. I love this chili. And we have the morita, which is chipotle, but a dried chipotle. And I love the smell of this chili. First step, de-seed all these. If you do like it really spicy, you can definitely leave the seeds in here, but we don't around here. Now, I know sometimes these chilies can be hard to find. If you're a bit organized, then make sure you order them ahead, because these dried chilies make such a difference. All right, now we have all these de-seeded. We've got some hot water. Bring that back to a simmer, which this kind of didn't come out of a simmer, which is good, and turn it off. Just wanna let those soak, just, do their thing. While that's doing that, we're gonna get everything else ready. A couple of plum tomatoes. Just leave them whole, but just take the core out, maybe a bit more elegantly than that. Now we're gonna cut up the onion. So a white onion, this is a small one. And we're just gonna peel and dice. This is all gonna get blended, so you don't have to be too particular. Ooh, say 5 cloves of garlic. Nothing crazy, you don't want too much. We'll go 6, they're small. I don't know if I'm crying from the onions or the chilies. It's spicy. Now take a piece of cheesecloth. You don't have to use this, you can just do it without, but then you have to kind of fish everything out. Cinnamon stick, some bay, clove, just 2. They're pretty powerful. Some cumin seeds, black peppercorns, oregano, we'll put straight in. Oh, oregano, it's worth mentioning. You want Mexican oregano. I couldn't find any at my local Latin shop, so I'm just using like the Italian or Mediterranean stuff, but bad Andy, you really should use the Mexican stuff. It does have a different flavor. Tie this little parcel up, cut the top off. A little potpourri. All right, our chilies have been going for a while now. Just gonna turn that heat back on and get these 2 plum tomatoes in there just for the skins to soften. We've got our blender ready. Just get your onion and garlic in there. Add the oregano, I'm not sure. Some white vinegar, coffee break. Now we scoop these out and in they go. Tomatoes, all those chilies. And don't be afraid if a little bit of water goes in there, because you're probably gonna need a bit of that anyway to help blend this all up. It's gonna preempt that we're gonna need some. Pour a little bit of that liquid in there. Get the lid on. All right, let's see how this is looking. Ooh, it's looking spicy. It's time to start sealing this meat off. So I got a big Dutch oven here that I got the lid for. High heat, get some neutral flavored oil in the bottom of the pan. You want an oily braise at the end, because that's what we're gonna dip our tacos in. We're just gonna get that relatively hot, seal off all our pieces of beef. So we've got good golden color on all sides. Meat's all sealed off. We need some of this rendered fat to cook off our sauce, but it's probably a bit too much in there. So I'm gonna pull half of it out, back on a low heat, and we're gonna carefully add in our sauce. All right, we just need to fry this off for a bit. Just be careful. You got a lot of hot fat, a lot of spicy chilies, and this stuff will start to bubble. So make sure there's no kids or dogs at your feet. You know, you've got shoes on. People always pick at me for not wearing shoes. I'm at home, leave me alone. And cook this off for about 6 or 7 minutes. All right, in goes our little bag of flavor. Like I was just saying, be careful. It's come up to temperature now, so be really careful because it starts to spit. We're gonna add our meat back to it. Leave the bones to last because that's kind of the least important, I guess. We've got some beef stock here. Just want enough to kind of cover. Give it a little jiggle. My money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds. Do you reckon Louis Theroux likes tacos?
Who doesn't like tacos?
All right, that's starting to look pretty special. I won't lie, I'm pretty chuffed with myself on the way that's looking. Chuck these bones on the top. That should add a little bit more flavor. You are just gonna have to pull them out at the end anyway, but it doesn't hurt. Now you can put a cartouche on this if you wanna be really fancy. I'm not gonna bother. Lid on. I'm gonna chuck it behind me on the induction on a really low heat, maybe 3 hours. And then with a couple of hours to go, we'll come back and make some of the tortillas. Oh, if you didn't know, I wrote a cookbook. The link is down below if you want to go get yourself a copy. All right, this has been cooking for just over 3 hours now, and ooh, it's looking good. So you're gonna see all the fats come to the top, which is what we want. That's the fat we're gonna use to cook the tortillas. So you want it tender, but you don't want it to, you wanna be able to pick it up. But when you pick it up, you should be able to just kind of squash it, and it just falls apart like that. So what we're gonna do is turn the heat completely off, and you wanna let that rest in that sauce for about half an hour. And if you pull the meat out now, it's gonna dry out. So we'll let that rest in there, and that gives us time to make our tortillas. So let's get those done. To make tortillas, you need masa. We kind of historically have never loved corn tortillas, and I think it's because the shop brought ones that we get here actually aren't very good. Unless there's ones that I haven't found that are very good. But making them fresh changed my mind. The other thing you're gonna need is one of these, a tortilla press, and some plastic. Now these bags work really well. You want it just slightly bigger than your press. 2 pieces, just like that. The thing that takes practice is you've got to get the hydration right. So you start with equal quantities, which I've only just got, and we'll mix that, and then I'll show you how we see if we've got enough hydration or too much hydration. All right, he's gonna bring that together with a wooden spoon, then we'll use our hands. Use a wooden spoon to start because it's hot water and it will burn. Bring that dough together. It's already feeling a bit dry, so I have got some more water coming. Just be careful, this dough is hot. Even though I'm kind of a few years since I've cooked professionally, as in the kitchen, I do still have kind of chefy hands. So just be careful when you're dealing with this dough. But it is easier to bring together with your hands than a wooden spoon. Just add a little bit at a time because you don't want to overhydrate it either. And as it sits there, the flour will absorb more. So once the dough's kind of come together, what you're gonna do is take a small piece, roll it in your hand, and then just press it flat. If you push it flat and the edges start to crumble, that usually means the hydration's a bit too dry still. So when you do that, you don't want cracks. Now, I'm just gonna let this sit for a minute because that just might mean that the masa needs to hydrate a bit more or absorb a bit more of that water before I start adding water. Place a clean tea towel over it, and I'm just gonna let it sit for 3 or 4 minutes. I have a clean up in the meantime. That's been sitting there for a minute to see if it's hydrated any. Another test. Will I have got it right? Feel free to roast me in the comments if I've completely screwed this up too. Oh, I think we're pretty close. There's a little break there. I'm gonna add just a little. We'll let this go in, rest for a minute, and then we'll get everything else set up. Make sure we keep this covered at all times. You wanna need a cast iron pan and a high heat. You want that thing hot. Then we're gonna need somewhere to put our tacos once they're cooked. And you want another clean tea towel because the taco is not finished cooking until it's steamed inside this. So we'll get that ready. Now I'm gonna cheat as well and use a fish slice to get them out. Make our tacos, open our piece up, one plastic over, take out a piece of our masa. You can hear grunting and groaning, that's my dog being a weirdo. Piece of dough about that big, squeeze it nice and tight, roll it into a tight ball. You want it nice and smooth and round. If it's not round, it won't become a round tortilla. In the center, plastic on top, and press. Now, I like to turn them just so that they're even. One last press. This is the tricky part. These things are pretty delicate at this point. Peel it off. When you put this in your cast iron, do not move it, whatever you do. It hits the pan and you leave it. I'll show you this one, but basically what you do now is you start making the next one so you're ready to go in. They're coming in, going up, coming in, going up. Should only take about 30 seconds each side. Like pancakes, the first one's never the best, but you know, I'm just making excuses. Oh, it's not bad, it's not bad. I'll take that. All right, and then to our bowl. Rinse and repeat. It's time to puff. Tuck them in and I tuck, my night. So now all our tortillas are made. It's time to get the garnishes ready, and then we will get the meat ready. And we'll start assembling these delicious little numbers. So the garnishes can be as simple or as kind of complicated as you want them. I'm just gonna do some diced white onion, which is kind of a must, and some coriander or cilantro. So I'm just gonna dice up this onion. We'll run a knife through that coriander. And the only other thing we need is some cheese. Now, ideally you would have Oaxaca cheese, but I couldn't find Mexican oregano here on the Sunshine Coast, so I sure as hell can't find Oaxaca cheese. So the next best thing is some mozzarella. So I've got like a medium to low moisture mozzarella here. I'm just gonna grate it. And finally, we just need to shred this meat. Now all this fat on the top we wanna keep, because that's what we're gonna use to cook our tacos. We're gonna get all the meat out of here, and then we're gonna shred it down. So tender and juicy, I can just do it with tongs. So we'll just skim the top layer of this delicious bright red fat, put it into a dish like this, and then we'll save all that bottom consomme to serve on the side. So we're gonna skillet back on like a medium heat. All right, we take a tortilla, we dip it in the oil, and it goes. Beef on half, a little bit of cheese on top of that, some onions. Fold it over. Just let it get a nice little crust. Give it a flip, make sure that cheese melts nicely. There we go again. Oh, it certainly smells good, doesn't it? And I almost forgot the consomme at the end, which is the leftover cooking liquid, a bit more white onion, some coriander, and there you go. A few of the birria tacos on the plate, some of the consomme or the braising liquid on the side, simply garnished with some white onion and some coriander, a wedge of lime. What more could you ask for? I guess I should taste some. You know, one of my pet peeves is that when food creators make all kind of weird noises when they eat their food and carry on like a pork chop, well, this is actually worth it. This is probably the tastiest taco I've ever eaten. Granted, I have never been to Mexico, but we'll change that soon. Anyway, legends, this is definitely a recipe you should try. Make everything from scratch, including the tortillas. But if you really can't be bothered and you're gonna buy them, then make sure you buy the corn tortillas. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you took anything from it. Subscribe if you're not, and we'll see you next week for another recipe. Peace.